get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night, just to give into the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
All right. Good morning, folks. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers with Laura's mic open with the People's Pundit. And I'm the People's Pundit, Rich Barrett. You can follow me on Twitter at Peoples_Pundit if you don't already. All right. So let's talk about what we found, where things stand, some of the race calls you could expect today. We're going to get into all of that. Okay. Let me just clear something up real quick. All right. I don't know why people are uncomfortable with the idea of me looking into voter irregularities and using the tools at my disposal to look. I mean, if there's nothing there, then you don't have anything to worry about. However, that being said, and I will update you on what we found in Michigan so far. All right. What I said on Twitter, journalists should pick up the phone and call people so that they understand what people are referring to. Because there is a change of address flag on a voter file does not necessarily mean that that vote has something wrong with it. It's simply the pool of voters we start with, along with deceased, whatnot, to find voting irregularities. All right. We have not crossed those people in Fulton, Georgia yet. However, it is where most of this stuff is popping up. And I can tell you, I understand the Secretary of State in Michigan said that they caught some of these voters that were deceased were rejected. I would ask them to show me a proof of that and to show me where, I mean, really at this point, there's so many. We could tell you that there's a list that is about 10,000 strong of people in Michigan where, according to the Secretary of State's own website, these people applied for, received, and submitted absentee ballots. All right. I am open to the idea that some of these were rejected during the counting process. Unfortunately for them, they didn't open that counting process up to the world to see, so they expect us just to take their word for it. And I'm not an idiot and will not do that. All right. I don't understand why everyone's so uncomfortable with the idea of me doing this. All right. So we will move on to Georgia next. And regardless here, If you're a watcher of the show, you know I've been talking about this for months. I'm going to continue to do it. All right. And by the way, let's read something before we get into our meaning, not just me. We were all in the New York Post yesterday in a great article that I would love to read to all of you, because we set a totally different standard in the polling industry. And because I believe because we were accurate, we set a new standard that others are just going to have to learn to live up to moving forward. Otherwise, you could just be called a fake poll or smeared if you don't do it how we did it, as transparent as we did it.
And reiterate, we as in...
Yes, and I mean we as in because you guys funded it. We did this together. We did this together. And that article in the New York Post yesterday was the beginning of the end to how they do things. From this point on, we should demand that they do it how we did it. All right, and we'll get into that. But I'd like to read something to you really quickly, okay? Because there appears to be this, problem with me looking into this stuff. 4 years ago, there was an election in Africa in which the candidate claimed that he had the election stolen from him. All right. There were witnesses that ran to the media. All right. Witnesses that got these allegations in the international news media, which were taken very seriously by the international community. All right. Witnesses, just like the witnesses that were standing behind Rudy Giuliani at the press conference that American media said were not evidence. That's what witnesses are. They provide testimonial evidence. Okay. Anyway, the BBC writes this article, Vote Rigging, How to Spot the Telltale Signs, September 2016. All right. Too many voters is the number one. Watch the turnout figures. They can be a big giveaway. You never get 98 or 99% turnout in an honest election. You just don't. Voting is compulsory in Gabon, but it is not enforced. Even in Australia, where it is enforced, where you can vote by post or online and it can be fined for not voting, turnout only reaches 90 to 95%. All right, so let me explain this to you again. We are now approaching, and in some metros will exceed, turnout levels that are comparable to nations where mandatory voting is the law. Take Philadelphia, for instance, the amount of ballots that they claim they still have out there. For those of you who didn't see my tweet yesterday, we're approaching levels of mandatory voting nations, people. Does anybody believe that Joseph R. Biden turned out more Black Americans in metros and in ghettos than Barack Obama, or even Hillary Clinton for that matter? Don't take my word for it. The BBC says that's a tell. The BBC's an authority, right? They're an authority. We can't question the BBC.
I didn't know they decided elections.
At the time of writing yesterday, Laura, there were 693 approximate total votes counted in Philadelphia. They were claiming to have as much as 145,000 more. There are approximately 970,000 voter records in Philadelphia, excluding known dead and change of address flags, but not duplicates or other common reasons for dirty rolls. Folks, that would be 95% turnout. Whoa! According to the BBC, that's a tell. Milwaukee, you too. That's a tell. The BBC said so. Just so everybody could see, I put that voter file up. It's also important to understand we always have dirty rolls. Sometimes it's completely innocent. The state takes time. They're always behind, catching up to deaths, change of address flags, duplicate records, maiden names. They are always behind. How many of you, when your loved one died, if you had a loved one die recently, how many of you ran to the Secretary of State or the Supervisor of Elections in your state and said, you got to take grandma off the voter roll, she just passed away? Not many. Not many.
I think
The-
it should become a law that
There is a law. This is where I'm going with this. Give me a second. It's called the National Voter Registration Act of 1993. They just don't abide by it. The vote total and share for Hillary Clinton was not at all bad in 2016. That was a decent performance given population changes. There is almost no growth in this area of the country. The Midwest isn't, until Trump anyway, was an economically dying region in the nation along with the Northeast. Pennsylvania is the mid-Atlantic, in between we call it the Rust Belt, but in between the Rust Belt and New England, the Northeast of the United States. It is very important to understand that you would not expect large jumps in turnout in this area because population doesn't support it. Texas, you would. You will find out when the census is done that 2 of Texas's metros are among the fastest growing in the country. The far more likely outcome, folks, would have been that Joe Biden received fewer votes than Hillary Clinton, not more. And going into Election Day, that is in fact what we were told they roughly had. About 650,000 votes or so. So according to the BBC here, all right, right there, too many voters. This level of turnout, what they are claiming, is a tell. The main reason that full turnout is practically impossible is that electoral registers, even if they are recently compiled, can rarely be 100% up to date. This is not, look, 4 years ago, this was common knowledge from the BBC to support claims of voter fraud in a third world country. Now it's conspiratorial. Why is everyone so afraid of me looking into this? Why is the Secretary of State trying to dismiss what we have found now more than 10,000 potential and nearly 10,000 either confirmed or very likely? And why do I have these numbers range like this? Because there are some people on the voter file, which I didn't even know until we started to dig into this, that are so old, obviously they're dead, but the Social Security Administration has no record. I'm starting to question whether some of these people ever existed. Are these real people? I mean, there's so many of them. It's incredible. Even if no one gets sick or has to travel, people still die. And when a register is updated, new voters are keen to add themselves to the list. No one, however, has any great enthusiasm for removing the names of those who have died. And over time, the number of these non-existent voters increases. Wow, that sounds like Rich Barris, the People's Pundit, on Inside the Numbers. That's coming from BBC. Yet I have a disclaimer at the bottom of every one of my videos now.
preach it.
This is common knowledge. So you have to forgive my surprise and shock when I pull it off of the voter file and start typing them in to the Michigan Secretary of State database, and lo and behold, these people have somehow submitted absentee ballots. What we are finding is that this was not 1 or 2 activists that are running around. It just doesn't, it strains credulity to believe. It does, to push that kind of an explanation. These ballots were requested in September. They were submitted in October. These were being banked over a 2-month period. And in some cases, some of these people were inactive and then reapplied. Their registration was basically reactivated. These clerks processed these applications, or so it says. Nobody in media wants to go run to Cindy Schneider in Kalamazoo County, Alamo Township, and ask how the hell Mary voted when she died in Utah.
I think she should be arrested.
Nobody thinks, well, I don't think she should be investigated. All right.
Investigate.
Investigate.
Done.
Do not, don't, you know,
I know.
it should be investigated. Somebody should go there and investigate it.
You're absolutely right.
We have the names of these clerks' offices. They were processed by their office. Cindy, how did Mary vote? How could she have voted if she died in Utah decades ago?
Well, you don't know about the lesser's effect?
Unbelievable. We also, I mean, one of them was really sad. It was the couple. They're both dead. They both voted. And actually, in fact, he died in Michigan decades ago, and she left and went to go live with family in Indiana and died in Indiana. She voted. It's incredible. And nobody finds this at all worthy of investigating. The BBC said these are tells. I once reported on an election in Niger Delta where some areas had turnout of more than 120%. Quote, they're very healthy people around here and very civic minded, a local official assured me. But a turnout of more than 100% in an area or an individual polling station is a major red flag and a reason to cancel the result and rerun the election. Whoa! Whoa! You're going to force a third world country to hold an entirely new election because they have the same anomalies that you can point out in multiple precincts around the country? This was always the issue with precinct level data, by the way, because we can't tell where these 90s are coming from countywide, which, again, I will tell you, I believe it's my personal opinion, which I'm allowed to have as somebody who's been observing and reporting on elections for more years than I can remember now. We always have precinct level data. I believe it's my opinion. This is by design. And I believe that when that data is finally available in its totality to us, we are going to find that certain precincts were driving these numbers, that these problems were in certain precincts that are, by the way, repeat offenders year after year, cycle after cycle. A high turnout in specific areas, according to the BBC, is another flag. Even where the turnout is within the bounds of possibility, if the figure is wildly different from the turnout elsewhere, it serves as a warning. Milwaukee. And it's not just Milwaukee. These are everywhere we look, guys. I know these precincts are going to tell us the story. I know they are. Because in a more representative sample of the vote, the break in the vote was different. The New York Times, us, big data poll, with every indication, just like Miami-Dade, every indication was that Trump was going to do better in urban areas in these Midwestern states. And indeed, he was. The only one that hasn't changed so far is Miami-Dade. I wonder why. I'm just saying the BBC tells me it's a tell. Why would one particular area or one individual polling station have a 90% turnout while most other areas register less than 70%? We have a whole spreadsheet in Wisconsin, folks.
It's sad another country
Showing
sees it.
It's sad that a third world country gets held to account more than this one. We are allowed to go backward and regress into third world status while the rest are allowed to go forward. And if something happens, and if there's something that happens like this, the whole international media comes together and says, these are tells. This is clearly fraud. There are too many tells, and we need to hold another election. That wouldn't even be plausible in this country, or at least that's the way that, But the bottom line is, even in Wisconsin alone, which we've had time to go through and show the disparities in turnout data, it's so crystal clear. Something strange is almost certainly going on, especially if the high turnout is in an area which favors one particular candidate or party over another.
I mean, if you're going to cheat, wouldn't you think to try to give the other candidate just a little bit.
Well,
make it believable.
the last dump that just came in Philadelphia, folks, this morning was 5% for Donald Trump. Folks, he got 15% in 2016 everywhere in the country. It is very clear that he did not. When we were polling, it looked like that disparity was coming from black men. According to the media exit polls, Donald Trump doubled his support even with black women. So we are supposed to believe that Joseph R. Biden held down Donald Trump more than Hillary Clinton did, who had decades and decades and decades of relationships in these communities. Neighboring communities. She was a senator from New York. Speaking of New York, look at New York. Somehow, just Philadelphia. Somehow, just Milwaukee. Somehow, just Detroit. Somehow, just Atlanta. And now others are starting to like, oh my God, we look stupid. We better start harvesting. My God, we better start getting out there. Come on, let's take this margin down a little. I mean, look, you got to be stupid to really not. I am willing always to look at the facts and then, spread them out as they are. Mm-hmm. I am telling you what we found in Michigan thus far, and we are not a big team, is not plausible. That it's not plausible without some kind of effort. The man didn't even have a get out the vote operation. How did 5 figures of dead people find their way to the absentee ballot rolls? How did that happen? Pennsylvania on the surface looks horrible already. In Georgia, this is the problem, because I constantly am getting these calls from, they don't understand how ballots are typically handled in a normal election. And they don't understand that we simply left in the way we conducted this election. We opened the door. We completely opened the door. We do things a certain way, and most people take it for granted, but they're like systemic procedures, or they're procedures that are put in place so they naturally prevent anyone, or at least try to prevent anyone from doing anything wrong. Keep an eye on the number of votes excluded as invalid. Even in countries with low literacy rates, this isn't normally above 5%. It's also normally not as low as it is right now. High numbers of invalid votes can mean that officials are disqualifying ballots for the slightest imperfection, even when the voter's intention is perfectly clear, in an attempt to depress votes for their opponents. Well, we don't even have those numbers yet. What happened to all the naked ballots in Pennsylvania that were supposed to be thrown out? The envelopes are gone now. The envelopes are gone. More votes than ballot papers issued. This is why it's important to canvass. Without going through this, it's important to canvass because, according to the poll worker in North Carolina I spoke with the other day, she said, honestly, some of these people just aren't that bright, and that mistakes happen. And in Wisconsin, we've seen some really egregious mistakes in the past where, and then, by the way, in 2016, Jill Stein wanted a recount. They started to go over Wayne County's stuff, and they stopped it because it was uncovering people entered numbers. They didn't have the physical ballots to back them up. What are you talking about? 3,000 votes in you recorded here. Where's that box? There's only 365 ballots in there. Oops. Plus 2,000 Trump. You know what? Let's stop this. We don't need the canvas. I guess he did win, and they put it to bed. That's what happened. It's just people didn't hear about it because the media was hoping that it would overturn his margin, and that same thing happened in Wisconsin. I'm uncomfortable with the idea of being censored or attacked for showing people what just 4 years ago they said were telltale signs themselves. This country needed a new election. They demanded it. It's corrupt. We have really fallen now below third world. Is that where we're going?
when the polls close and before they open the boxes. Election officials normally have to go through a complicated and rather tedious process known as the reconciliation of ballots. And even here, folks, that is absolutely true. It's very tedious, very problematic, which is why I yelled for 2 months about how they were trying to say they were going to pull this off. In Florida, you're allowed to handle ballots 24 days before an election because we have come to learn that it is absolutely impossible and just too easy to cheat if you do not handle them with oversight, with accountability over a period of time. It allows precincts and counties and wherever, it allows them to withhold how many ballots they have. And maybe if they would have allowed overseers, poll watchers to go in there on election night, they would have a better case right now. But because they did not want anyone to see what was going on, people assumed the worst. And frankly, how could you not? Hat tip Jonathan Turley, by the way. Good for you, Jonathan. Good for you. As if these places, their behavior, their history warrants the benefit of the doubt. This is like leaving your keys on the table for the car thief.
We're in the car. Running.
Or in the car.
Running.
Right. It's even worse. This is like leaving your keys in the car to go into the store with a known car thief standing right there.
Right by the door.
And then when you come out, your car is missing. The car thief gets insulted that you accused him of being the one to take it.
There you go.
It's incredible. Anyway, after they have counted how many paper ballots they received in the morning, they then need to count how many are left and how many, if any, were torn or otherwise spoiled and have to be put aside. None of that ever happened. Or at least we can't confirm it did. They are claiming everything was done on the up and up. The result will tell them how many papers should be in the box. It should also match the number of names checked off on the registrar. Now, the problem is here, folks, we just will never know with some of this stuff. They just ask you to take their word for it. The first task when the box is open is to count the number of papers inside. This is done prior to counting the votes for the different candidates. If there is a discrepancy, something is wrong. And if there are more papers in the boxes than were used by or issued by the polling staff, it is highly likely that someone has been doing some stuffing, also known in Philadelphia as vote ringing, which they indicted people on just months before this election, including judges with close relationships to other election judges who defied a federal court order. That's a good enough reason to cancel the result and arrange a rerun. Oh my God. Good for thee, but not for me.
Amen.
This is what the West tells other countries. These are the standards they hold them to. Emerging democracies. When we come back, we'll talk about results that don't match. I'm going to take a 30-second break. Then we're going to go over the article in the New York Post, which is the beginning of the end to how people like Quinnipiac and Nate Cohen at the New York Times conduct themselves. We'll be back in 30 seconds. This episode of Inside the Numbers is brought to you by Harvest Snaps Wasabi Peas. That's not true, actually. It's not true, but I love these things. God, they're so good. I love all things wasabi. Great comment, by the way, in question, and we'll talk about that in a second. There is a big difference between a recount and a canvass, and I will tell you about that momentarily. And it is true what Scott Walker said, that recounts don't shift numbers that significantly, or at least should not. Wisconsin, though, because of when Scott Walker was there, is uniquely qualified or set up to find egregious instances of either fraud or mishandling of ballots or mistakes. That is true. However, canvases are necessary in the case of the allegations that we are hearing from witnesses. In these circumstances, when you have allegations of this nature, you need a recanvass. You need to canvass the result. That is when people go hand by hand. A recount often will just take the same ballots and fish them through the same Scantron reading machine. All right. What you really do need when you're talking about allegations such as this one, and I'm not saying they're going to get it, I'm saying this is what it would require, is a recanvass when everybody from both sides goes ballot by ballot and look to see if there were issues with some of these votes. All right. Results that do not match. Mobile phones have made elections much more transparent. It is now standard practice to allow party agents, observers, and sometimes even voters to watch the counting process and take photographs of the results sheet with their phones. They then have proof of the genuine results from their area, just in case the ones announced later by the Election Commission don't match. It has clearly taken crooked politicians some time to catch up with the fact that people will now know if they change the results. I can tell you, because I did not go to sleep, that Milwaukee made some kind of an error. The decision desk had Joe Jorgensen, and they said, they're taking some of the blame for this error, but out of nowhere, Joe Jorgensen was currently leading in the vote with 52%, about 3 million votes. It was some crazy error. And when it was updated, Joe Biden netted several thousand more votes. That was before the dump happened. The dump then happened about 5 minutes later, what we now know and refer to as the 4 a.m. dump. That 4 a.m. dump was preceded by an error which briefly showed Joe Jorgensen ahead and then netted Joe Biden several thousand more votes in the state of Wisconsin than he had before. They all came from Milwaukee. In southeastern Togo, local party representatives told me that they witnessed the count in 2005 and endorsed the result. They saw the official in charge leave for the capital, taking the signed result sheets with them. Yet the results announced later on the radio were different. The same thing happened in Katanga province of the Democratic Republic of Congo in 2011. The results announced on the radio were not the same as those international observers saw posted outside the polling stations. But this transparency only works if the official announcement of results includes figures for individual counting centers. And this has become an issue in the current Gabonese election. It also only works if you don't have a corrupt media willing to bury them. It also only works if you don't have officials willing to stand up and point it out. The only reason anybody caught Antrim County is because of social media. That is it. Does anyone seriously believe that those officials were aware of that mistake in Michigan? How many hours was it, Laura? It was a day and a half of me going, this is a county Donald Trump won with 2/3 of the vote in 2016. How did Joe Biden flip this county? You understand this is mathematically impossible for a 2/3 shift one way to a 2/3 shift the other. This doesn't happen. We're not talking about Juneau County, Wisconsin, which votes for the winner of every presidential election because it's a pivot or swing county. You don't think that they didn't notice? You noticed because people have open transfer. And here's my favorite. Delay in announcing results. Finally, something that is not necessarily a sign of rigging, but is often assumed to be so. Election commissions, particularly in Africa, can appear to take an inordinately long time to publish official results. Mind you, they're making excuses for Africa. Third world African nations. This is not helped by local observer networks and political parties who, tallying up the results sent in by their agents on mobile phones, have a good idea of the result long before the more cumbersome official process is completed. But the official process takes time, especially in countries with poor communications, and the introduction of modern electronic transmission systems has not necessarily helped. But that is because they are not. You understand what they're making the excuse for long results are? That A, these are third world countries B, even when you give them these systems to tally them up, they're not competent enough to use them. So are you telling me that Bob Beckel was making an excuse for Fairfax that night because they're incompetent and can't update the system? Come on, man. All right. Simply using that process. Let's move on here to, I just wanted to put that out there because it seems to be okay for the international community to bully third world countries into having new elections because these are tells of election fraud. But they don't hold the West to their own standards. Please give me a freaking break.
How embarrassing as American it is.
This is an embarrassment. This is a total embarrassment.
We're the biggest joke right now all over the world.
This is it's a total embarrassment. And I'll tell you what else. The Mexican president refusing to congratulate Joe Biden says it all, because all of those other countries, they all wanted Biden to win. So they want a weakened America. They don't give a damn. They want a weak America. But somebody like the Mexican president, who, by the way, had his election the same. He had problems with his election. So he knows what it's like to be right. He knows what it's like to have an entire system try to tip the scales for you. Against you. Excuse me. All right, let's talk about what we can expect for today. All right. We can expect, and Peter, if you're listening, I will call you back and answer your questions after this. Okay, let's talk about what wrapped up. Let's wrap up some stuff here. Okay, we do agree. The decision desk. We got an email this morning, and we do agree that. I mean, of course, Fox News's call for the House was way early, like their call in Arizona was, regardless of the result. But we do see Democrats hitting 218 today in the House, really 219. With the California race, all right, which is really D versus D. All right, Democrat versus Democrat. All right. Republicans are likely to add more in California and even Utah 4. Okay. So, but the bottom line is really they got to get to 218. Regardless, the Democratic majority will be diminished greatly. All right. In the Senate, it is I'm in agreement. I just don't see where, unless of course we just have this again egregious padding of the vote. I think that Tillis, we could call North Carolina today. Tillis will remain the senator of North Carolina. All right. Tillis's lead actually may be bigger. And this is the same thing I said with Georgia, although they amazingly found the votes in Georgia, because what I was saying was, okay, this is what they say they have out. Perdue's lead was bigger than what they said was outstanding. That is the case with Tillis because there are Republicans didn't sleep on North Carolina the way they slept on Georgia and other states. So they were all over it. Like, no. Donald Trump and Tom Tillis are the victors in these races, and that is it. Right now, we think it's probably likely that Tillis's lead is bigger than the number of outstanding ballots that are even out. But even if it's not, Cunningham would need a margin that looks beyond possible. We just haven't seen them break like that in North Carolina. All right, we're going to find out with the North Carolina Secretary, the Secretary Board of Elections today, and don't be shocked if you see North Carolina called for Tom Tillis. All right, Sullivan and Young in Alaska are very favored to hold on. All right. At the presidential level, we will also be looking at the possibility of calling that today. Depends on what the North Carolina, again, State Board of Elections says, but it would be ridiculous for ballots to break in North Carolina for Joe Biden. They never broke this way. Let me explain this to you. In North Carolina, Nate Cohn was just ridiculously incompetent. They never broke that way. He never had that lead in the absentee ballot vote. Democrats, it was kind of funny because the whole idea was that independents in North Carolina were supposed to go so handily against Donald Trump. That is not what happened. When the ballots were dumped, Democrats had a partisan edge of about D plus 12. Biden's lead was about D plus 12. That almost never happens. which is why I always tell people not to read the early vote tea leaves. But we find it highly unlikely in a military state, too. We're going to have some of these military and provisional ballots come in. We find it extremely unlikely, if not impossible, for Biden to overcome Trump's lead in North Carolina. Tillis will be called first because Tillis's lead is bigger. And the undervote we are well aware of and we are looking into. It is also a tell, by the way, when you have the Republican vote difference between the president and Senate so close, and yet on the Democratic side, they're much bigger. And I just want to point out for the record, 2 weeks before this election, I told you Tillis was going to hold on. I told you Tillis didn't lead in a single media university poll going into 2014, and that he wasn't going to lead in any going into these either. Yet he was going to eke it out. And yes, I am right to say that, troll boy. You can't point out a CBS News poll from 6 months before the election. They repolled, jackass, and they had Kahagan up. Cunningham's lead in Democratic internal polling was 6 to 8 points before the scandal hit. When that scandal hit, North Carolina is heavy. There are some very heavy military areas. Cal Cunningham is a Jody. A Jody was never going to win in the state of North Carolina once that happened. What is a Jody? A Jody is a scumbag guy who sleeps with your wife while you're away serving the nation overseas. You get the crap kicked out of you for being a Jody. They sing about you in cadence. They plummeted after that story hit. And they were biting their nails, and they knew that Tillis had erased his lead. And yet, New York Times, Biden +6. New York Times, Cunningham +6. And the rest of those jokers. Even the Democratic Party knew that they were more than likely going to find themselves having to answer to the donors because of the ungodly amount of money that they raised from them and spent in the Tar Heel state. At the presidential level, again, like I said, North Carolina will be callable, very likely callable sometime today, but Tillis is probably going first. In Georgia, Biden's lead is growing because they can't get a hold on Fulton County and other places. There are, and I will say this again, if you don't understand what I'm saying on Twitter, before you run a story, pick up the phone and call me. What I was saying is there are that many ballots that are change of address flags in Fulton, in many of these areas, and Fulton is one of them. We're getting to the point now where the turnout level is starting to eat into what we know, folks, are not legit. The vote, I just read you the BBC report. That is why we have dirty rolls. They are slow to the rolls. Slow to the rolls. They don't catch up to people dying, to people moving. We're now approaching territory where we have to be looking at those ballots because it's ludicrous.
Well, no,
And-
now they're voting the old people who died, but then their maiden names also.
That's right. There's tons of, I mean, we are finding, that's right. Laura's right. Finding maiden names. I mean, we're doing the easy stuff to spot. It will take a while for us to go through this. And it doesn't matter what the outcome of this election is, which, I know the media is trying to steamroll. I'm not doing that solely because of this election. I'm doing it because I told everybody for 2 months that we are going to run a quasi third world like election. And we just can't have this moving forward in this country. And all these contacts, man, we just can't have it. Elections have to have integrity. And if people on either side do not have faith in the electoral process, it will lead to violence. This country will crack apart, and that will be it. That is not hyperbole. That is reality. Self-governing democracies have got to have election integrity. They've got to. It is part of the social contract. It's at its core. Without it, it's all over. Anyway, in Georgia, there are military ballots and overseas ballots that we have not seen. There are more than the media is, from what we are hearing. There are more than the media is letting on. And the problem here is that we don't know the break in them, and that Democrats knew this, and Republicans just didn't get a jump on it. They were ballot harvesting. They were. And masking it as curing ballots. I'm talking about after the election. To what degree, we don't know yet. We're only one team. But this is why you don't give up reporting deadlines and standards. This is why you segregate categories of votes by certain times at night. I really can't tell you how proud I am of Florida. I really cannot tell. I can't tell you we got rid of those two corrupt chumps, and that election ran like a well-oiled machine.
Those pieces of garbage really, I mean, I really want to know. I mean, talking about getting rid of them, I really want to know how long Trump, like, what is the disparity of the Hispanic vote that Trump
That's
won
right.
in 2016?
Was Broward always that low? Was
Yeah.
right. Was Broward really ever 20%? Was Miami-Dade ever 30%?
That's what I'm talking about.
I wonder the same thing. And now that's a question we'll never be able to answer that question, Laura. But I was dead on. She makes a great point. What she's saying is, of course he made gains in Miami-Dade. I think everybody knew that. We polled that, but he made more gain than we
Like,
polled.
serious
He
gains.
outperformed our poll by 6 points in Miami-Dade. Serious gains. Even in Broward County, we saw him tick up, but not like that. And it makes you wonder, without these people that were the repeat offenders, the usual suspects, it really makes you wonder how much of that was legitimate political coalition shifts and how much were the ballots games that they play. Because these are the same games that Brenda Snipes repeatedly played. The law is the law by 8 p.m. What do you got, Brenda? What do you have? No, you cannot take 150,000 ballots 2 days after the election and feed them through the Scantron machine, Brenda. How much of that was just election integrity? Leakage, right? We could call it. Election leakage. I don't even know what to call it, right? But the numbers in Georgia, it is not uncommon for Georgia to add votes after the fact. It is, and I take issue with some of the claims from my friends in this business that this is normal to see these numbers. It is not normal to see these numbers. It is not. Not these kinds of numbers post-election. It's not. It's not. And you can't argue it is when this is the first time we're ever going to see vote numbers like this at a certain areas. Yet he underperformed everywhere and didn't have a get out the vote operation. It's not normal, guys. Don't sell yourselves like that. Don't do it. Because if it takes me a year, it takes me 2 years, it takes me 3 years, it takes me 4 years, I will put together a very comprehensive report that will detail where this happened everywhere. I'm not going to let it go.
Mhm.
By the way, sign up for the newsletter that's in the YouTube description because we're going to move. I love YouTube. We're going to stay on YouTube, of course. But there is now a very, very chilling environment. And we need to start running inside the numbers again on People's Pundit Daily like it did when it first aired. And I will put all the backdated episodes on there in case you want to go through the archives. But we're looking into our own. We have Brid that we use to actually live stream. We have a live server. But what we're going to look for is like a community where you guys can comment with each other from if you're on Periscope and, it feeds it in and brings it in. And then if you want to talk to each other across platforms, and then just, if something was to happen, you could all get back on People's Pundit Daily. It will not be behind the paywall, not the regular episode of Inside the Numbers. It will be public and free the way it is right now. Paywalls for, VIPs, whatever you want to call it. But this will be open. And so sign up to that newsletter. You'll see it below. It says newsletters. It will take you to the newsletter page. I think they're already all checked by default. Breaking news, the morning pundit. We haven't been doing that stuff a lot lately, so I haven't been pushing. I just don't tell you, and we don't push it. But there is only, considering how many followers we have, it's stale. There's about 600 people who signed up for the newsletter in the beginning for Inside the Numbers. If you are a subscriber on YouTube, we are not going to bombard your email box. All right. That's not what it's for. Sign up at least to the Inside the Numbers newsletter. This way we can reach you if something happens. All right. And we can tell you we're on PPD. Watch it on PPD. All right. All right. So 10:51. What else did I want to go over? I'm going to take my 2-minute break early here. All right. And when we come back, we're going to go over the article and the public polling project. I am so proud of the work that we did together before this election. I did not believe you guys would even fund this. Robert and Laura were right. I underestimated the appetite for honesty and transparency, right? And I just can't believe
Laura's what?
Laura was right. Laura was right. Okay. And all of you guys, thanks for the super chats. I see them in the corner of my eye, and I appreciate them. Let's take our quick 2-minute break now, okay? And with the bone band. And when we come back, we'll go over this awesome article that you never know. People call and they say, hey, can I interview you for this story? And I am happy to talk to most anybody, but you never know exactly how it's going to turn out. There's one line in there that I really couldn't be more proud of, because that was the entire point of the election 2020 public polling project. And I'm so glad not only that it was a success, that it was accurate. I am so glad that we're getting recognition for it, because we have to end the days, guys. What happened to Trump +4 in Montana? What happened to Trump is only ahead by a low single digits in Missouri? What happened to Trump could lose Alaska? Do you remember some of these numbers? Folks, no more. No more. All right. So we'll be back in 2 minutes. I'll leave you with the Bowen band. Then we're going to go over. Don't go anywhere, because I really want to show you this and go over this together. If you were a part of it, you definitely don't want to miss it. 2 minutes. We'll be back.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends, and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats is restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow
I think so. We love Wasabi fans. We back inside the numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm the People's Pundit, Rich Barris. Follow me on Twitter at People's_Pundit if you don't already. And welcome to all the new followers who have. Amazing. I really wish you could have been here with us through the public polling project, which we're going to talk about in a second. Changed everything. I'm telling you, it changed everything. We now have something we can reference when everybody, because this is going to happen again. We will go through this again. Come the 2022 midterm elections, they will do it all over again. Because if you look at their smug, arrogant response to blowing this election, they are pretending like ballot harvesting and dead people voting validates their results. It did not. And I don't have to post it for the record. The New York Post posted it for the record and compared it to what we did at the public polling project. And we will have something to reference the next time they pull this crap. Because unfortunately, I am just turned into a cynic now, basically a full-born cynic. And I just don't believe them. I don't believe them anymore when they tell us that they did this wrong, they did that wrong, and it was an accident. I don't believe them. The real reason election polls were wrong again in 2020. And if you got the paper on Sunday, then you saw this, okay? I took that down because that spinning was slowing it up. I mean, there's so much. Unfortunately, there's a lot of stuff. Let me see if I can get rid of it because it'll ruin our stream. Okay. All right. From the Democratic, far from, oh no, okay. Well, I missed the first one. This is a big one. Once again, reality has humiliated the polling industry. Don't forget to subscribe to Inside the Numbers on the People's Pundit Daily on YouTube. And of course, you could subscribe to People's Pundit Daily. What a jolt in subscribers we have. We love you guys for it. But don't forget to do that, because if you didn't, you would have believed the crap that you were fed all this election cycle. It was a load, folks. A load. Are you ready? Once again, reality has humiliated the polling industry. Far from the Democratic landslide that the Real Clear Politics polling average and prognosticators like Nate Silver at 538 anticipated, Tuesday's presidential election was agonizingly tight, and Republicans gained seats in Congress and state legislatures. Independent pollster, that is what I am. I am not a conservative pollster. I am not a right-wing pollster. I am an independent pollster because I care more about being right than anybody winning an election. Independent pollster Richard Barris is also critical of his colleagues. Quote me. They hurt us bad this election, Barris told the Post. This industry is dominated by left-wingers, and a big, big problem is they're trying to profile the voting behavior of people they don't understand and may even despise. Unquote me. Polling has certainly gotten tougher since George Gallup's day. As recently as 1997, more than a third of Americans routinely agreed to participate in pollsters' surveys. By last year, that response rate has plummeted to 6%. A Pew Research study found. I got to tell you, I got a shout out to Mary Kay and Dory Luack. They did their homework on this. They really did. Yet, Barris's big data poll, along with conservative-leaning pollsters like Trafalgar and Susquehanna, managed to come closer to the election day results than the leading media outlets did. Barris's final poll of Florida gave Trump a 2-point lead, 1 percentage point shy of the president's 3-point victory there. In contrast, the New York Times Siena poll predicted a 3-point win for Biden in the Sunshine State. Quinnipiac found a 6-point Biden edge. That's a 10-point miss, almost. When all these votes are counted, we're looking at nearly a 10-point miss. We're looking at a 6-point miss for the New York Times. It was Biden plus 6 in their second to last poll. They herded at the end because that's what narrative polls do. They herded at the end because he was not. And clearly on election day, you could see his fear on his Twitter timeline. He knew that he was wrong when he saw that electorate. I tried to engage Nate Cohen at the New York Times to explain to him why he continues to blow the states of Florida and North Carolina, but specifically focused on Florida on one thread. He ridiculed, he was arrogant, he was smug,
And the hubris just was stank off of him. Now look at you, Nate. Now look at you. Barris places the blame in part on groupthink within the industry. Quote, me. I think they bully each other. They heard. That's when you start to mirror other pollsters because you're afraid that Nate Silver or CNN is going to call you an outlier. Unquote. Another enemy of accurate polling is time. And you guys remember, I told you, I just don't think we got it yet. I don't think we got it yet. Give me, we need a day or two. We need a little bit more time. And you guys did. And you were like, all right. Okay. We are not representative yet. We're not there. We're almost there. Quote, you can't reach a truly representative group of people in a day. But many pollsters are under the gun from their media clients. They want a horse race number, and they want it now. Unquote. Barris avoided that pressure by crowdfunding his battleground polls. You guys, you enabled me to do the work that I believed was my best work.
It was beautiful.
It was a beautiful thing.
I loved it. The people came together.
You came through.
Oh, man.
You came through. His Twitter followers and podcast listeners ponied up the cash to conduct them and chose the states he surveyed. In return, they received above average transparency with accesses to Barris poll questions, crosstab results, and maps showing just where in each state his respondents were found. Quote, you have to look not just at who you poll, but where you poll, he said. You can't say that a working class man in Milwaukee has the same opinions as a working man in rural Polk County. But rural and working class voters tend to be much more resistant to pollsters' entreaties, and that, Barris suspects, compounded his competitors' failures to anticipate Trump's support this year. Oh, what a handsome little devil. The way they're polling, they're reaching voters that skew to urban, I said. In that case, your Republican sample will be stacked with the John Kasich Republicans, the Bill Kristol Republicans, and that is not the Republican Party that gave the presidency to Donald Trump, unquote. Highly educated voters are often eager to answer a pollster's call, Barris finds, so it's easy for time-pressed pollsters to oversample them, unquote. Quote. They're dying to tell you what they think. And you guys have heard me say this before. They want to enlighten you. The other people just want to have their dinner and go to bed. It takes more finesse and more time to get to them. Barris also designed his poll to uncover secret reservoirs of Trump support. The under-the-radar, shy Trump voters by measuring what pollsters call social desirability bias. And just so we can go over this again, folks, real quick. In the state, do you believe there is a significant number of shy voters who do not want to share that they are voting for Donald Trump? Arizona, 83.4%. Florida, 64%. Pennsylvania, 65.7%. Michigan, 67.3%. Minnesota, 65%. Wisconsin, 68.5%. Why couldn't they do that, Laura? Why could they not do that? Why not could they? Because they could.
They didn't want to.
Why
It
didn't they?
fit
Is
their
the
narrative.
answer clearly that they didn't let Laura is right? Isn't it now completely obvious that Laura is right? They could have. They didn't want to. The people who pay the bills, they didn't want to. They wanted a narrative. Biden +6. You got to be kidding me. Biden +1 in Ohio. You guys know this because we opened up the damn crosstabs. I couldn't get Biden 1 in Ohio if I tried to fudge the numbers. I know I don't wait for party. You guys know that. And I did it on that show the day after Fox dropped the Biden +5. We polled it the same time frame. It was Trump +8. The raw was Trump +10. And you guys saw it. I had to open up the voter. I had to open up Market Site. I had to play with partisan ID to get it to Biden +6. And then 4, right? I did something like really crazy. Only made it like +2 or something. I manipulated the numbers to show how hard it would be to get to Biden plus anything in Ohio. Highly educated voters are often, Barris also designed his poll to uncover the wealth of secret Trump voters in a 6-question sequence. He asked whether respondents feel comfortable sharing political opinions with family, friends, neighbors, coworkers, strangers, and the ultimate, pollsters. You would be shocked at how uncomfortable people said they feel about talking to a pollster, he said. In Florida, for example, it came to 33% of all respondents. In Arizona, it was almost 4 in 10. In Florida, it was almost 33, like they noted. In Pennsylvania, it was about 3 in 10. In Michigan, it was almost 4 in 10. In Minnesota, it was about 34%, about 34.2%. In Wisconsin, it was about 4 in 10. Anybody who was worth anything in statistics will tell you numbers like that are an enormous problem. When you have that large of a percentage tell you, I could be lying to you right now, to report those results like you're certain about them, all skewed, all one way, is completely irresponsible. You would right. So here we go back to a quote. The most uncomfortable groups, and by the way, again, you know this because day after day after day, state after state after state, survey after survey after survey, these were the same people over and over again. The most uncomfortable groups were suburban women and black men aged 30 to 65. Those are the shy Trump voters. I did it again. And in the exit polls, Trump did unexpectedly well with those groups. Folks, there was no suburban white woman fleeing from Donald Trump. It didn't happen. I told you in 2016, he never polled great in the suburbs. He never polled great with these women. We were always comparing results in 2016 to what the media polls leading up to 2020 were suggesting, without telling people that this is what happened in 2016. He never polled well with suburban women. But on election day, the result looked very different. Yet we just went on. We just went on with certainty. That was the narrative. And that would be the story. When the real story was, these are the shy Trump vote, and Donald Trump would do better with non-whites than any Republican presidential candidate in a very long time, which turned out to be 60 years. Then they have Frank Luntz in here, my buddy Frank. Longtime Republican pollster Frank Luntz focus group's work confirmed Barris's findings. I bet that chapped his ass, right? He was right. I bet that hurt. Here's one thing, though. I'm not going to blow him up because he's very, he is a shy voter. He's a family member. He is not somebody that you would think would be a Trump voter. Highly educated. I'm not going to say anything else about him, but that's it. I don't have his permission to say this. Believes vehemently in the secret ballot. And he saw this. He was like, oh, look at this. Right? Look who it is. Right? But then he read to Frank Luntz's area and actually got insulted. Because Frank goes on to say that you have to tell these people, all right, it requires you to say to them, I respect you, I appreciate you, I value, and your opinion will have an impact. And that, like, we don't think you're stupid kind of thing. And he's like, I don't give a damn what you think. You're missing the point. It's my secret ballot, and I'll do what I will with it. That is why anonymity, folks, was always a very special ingredient to this secret sauce. You have to give people anonymity. You have to give them the respect that the voting system deserves. And Laura's got her hand up, which means she wants to say something.
That is because you will end up on a list that AOC wants you on.
That's true.
So you can have a long hit list.
We're talking about tribunals.
I mean,
You know,
did she really publicly call out for a list so we could be tried
and she was,
prosecuted?
and they, and her and many others were doing that before the election. So to put down the idea that anonymity was a key ingredient here and live caller was not the best way to go. To put it down and dismiss it when the atmosphere that we're in right now, the environment, is ridiculous. I really don't know. Look, it's at the point now where Quinnipiac, Nate, again, at the New York Times, they just keep throwing money at this guy and he just keeps blowing it. All right. They just get a cool charts for their money. They don't get accurate polling or legitimate election analysis. They just get more cool charts. I mean, that's it. At this point, you're either really bad at your job or you're intentionally lying to people. Which one is it? Both. I think the answer is C, all the above.
Yeah.
Because I tried to engage him professionally and meaningfully about why he blew Florida in 2018. He didn't want to listen. He did not want to listen. In fact, he was arrogant. He dismissed it. He mocked my methods. Right?
And then admits you were right.
And then retreats to his timeline on election day.
That's right.
Like, you know what? It's very hard to poll non-party affiliates in Florida.
But that's admitting you were right, though.
Of course it was. Of course it was. I said it's too hard. And really, I'm at the point now. I said this in 2016. I repeated it in 2018. I'm going to repeat it again. Stop polling my state. If your name is not Robert or Jim, stop polling my state. You suck and you're offending me. You're offending voters by even pretending to have a grasp of what you're doing. The state is too difficult for you. You can't even poll other Midwest states. How are you going to poll a state that's more diverse and 4 times the population size? Just stop. You're doing a disservice to the industry. You're doing a disservice to the voter. You're doing a disservice to candidates. You're doing a disservice to the country. We're at the point now, you're doing a disservice to the country. From this point on, I mean, to not include what we did and then to include somebody like Quinnipiac, I don't know what Tom is thinking. And I like Tom. But at this point, Quinnipiac and others, many others, Monmouth again, what a ridiculous polling record. But there'll be an A on the Foster scorecard, on the Slimers Foster scorecard. There'll be an A+ next year. They should be removed from Real Clear Politics. How many elections can you get wrong? Fox News, they were the worst, among the worst. Among the worst. Doesn't really matter if Joe Biden does end up getting seated by the Electoral College. The fact of the matter is, as we showed you with the Public Polling Project, this was always a close race. This would have been a landslide if not for COVID in Donald Trump's direction. Although, you know, I'm allowed to have my own personal opinion, if that's all right with YouTube and everybody else. I think I've seen enough. I think I've seen enough evidence that, you know, I think it's at least more likely than not that Donald Trump won this election. And that there were things that were going on for months on the ground.
But that's really not an opinion.
That
He really did win.
Well, right, but I'm saying like though, you know, all fake news. I'm allowed to have my own. I mean, we haven't looked at all the other states yet, but it seems systemic, Laura. It seems systemic and it seems planned.
Truly applies.
Yeah, it truly applies. It seems planned to me. You can see it. They had an early jump, you know, they had an early jump on it all. When I was telling everybody about the moratorium on standards on election integrity laws, they were already doing it. That's what it looks like to me. And I'm telling you, this was always a close election. Is it hard to poll now in the modern era? Because look, yes, different people respond to different modes of data collection at different rates. That has always been true. It's getting worse. There are people who are lying to us. We knew that, right, Laura? That we knew they were lying to us. We don't change the results on
I
it.
was gonna say we still had it.
You don't change the results on it. We have to take you at face value. But there were no doubt people lying to us. There were people that were incredibly difficult to reach just because you think you have enough. We set targeting guidelines just because you think you have enough because you spoke. Like I said, a guy in Milwaukee who's a working class guy is not the same as a guy in Polk County or Rusk. By the way, did you see how well Donald Trump did in Douglas and Ashland? The Northwest is the birthplace of the progressive movement. Republicans have been getting killed in those two counties. That is what cost an incumbent seat on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. That and underperformance basically everywhere else. And Donald Trump got in the low to mid 40s in those counties.
When is Arizona done?
It's incredible.
It's
It's incredible. And yet we're lost the state of Wisconsin.
right. That part.
I just look, again, I'm allowed to have my own. What were those questions, Laura, that people asked? Let's bring in Laura here because she had some great questions from you guys that I missed here. Let's what were they, Laura? What were they?
One was about audit. They want to know what's the difference because you touched on recount and recanvass, but you didn't touch on audit.
Right.
And then the other one is about what is the one you really like?
In an audit, I can answer that real quick. In an audit, they'll really go through things. I mean, really, not just inspect ballots to see whether or not a signature matched. I mean, they will really inspect and see whether or not physical ballots match the numbers that were entered into the system. They'll audit everything from the times of reporting. I mean, an audit really, is the way to, a canvas is better than a recount, but when you deny people the right to oversee what is going on in the counting process, in my opinion, an audit should be required. I mean, at that point, you really you betrayed the voters of that state. You betrayed them. You're whether or not it changes much, you're disenfranchising people because by law, both sides have the right to oversee what is going on. And they were denied. There's nothing the media can say or the naysayers can say to change what happened. And which is they denied people their legal right to oversee the counting process. And not just the counting, the judging. We have no idea. And I saw one of the questions was about rates. I have no idea what the rejection rate was. We just don't know. We have no clue at this moment. We have no clue. Typically, rejection rates were, and I have some for Pennsylvania a couple of days ago, but I probably have to dig through and see. But, we're talking about a couple percent. We have no idea what those rejection rates are for this election. We just don't. I wish we did. We were supposed to see a bunch of naked ballots rejected. I'm so hard-pressed to believe when you have these kinds of numbers of ballots that there just were, that and when you defy court orders. I mean, Alito ordered the segregation of those ballots. They ignored and defied the U.S. Supreme Court. A judge ordered them to let those poll watchers in, even though it was already 36 hours too late. They defied the order of that judge. Once you do that, once we're looking at irregularities like that, suspicious behavior of that kind of nature, I don't know. There's no other way. They already disenfranchised the vote. And in my mind, there's no other way. And by the way, if these were red counties doing that too, don't think for a second I wouldn't have said that. I smashed the Republican Party or that particular campaign in North Carolina when they were caught cheating with absentee ballots.
You actually ripped them a new one.
I ripped them a new one.
Because they're supposed to be the ones.
Yeah, and in fact, you're worse because you're the ones that are supposed to live to a higher standard. And I know that may be a bit of a double standard, but it is what it is.
Don't play the game.
Don't play it right. And I got to tell you, I'm stunned by how many of these Republicans have been playing a game for years they don't understand the rules to. Even in very red areas where we are, in fact, high population, but very red. Democrats count the votes. Go be a part of the process. People ask me all the time, what could I have done? What could I do? What could I do? I did tell people to be poll watchers because it was just too late to be certified for anything else. You guys should get involved with counting the votes. Go flood the zone, man, with applications, with bodies. I want to count votes next time. That's what you need to do.
Me too.
And that's what that lady told me too, by the way. Very, very red area in North Carolina. And she's like, honey, there may be a whole lot of Republicans here, but there's maybe one counting votes. All of these people are Democrats. And they double as election officials on Tuesday and activists on Thursday. All right. And then what was the other one somebody asked about? Benford's Law?
Yes.
Okay. That is good at spotting fraud. The U.S. State Department uses it to spot instances of fraud, and so does the West in emerging democracies, such as the one we just talked about at BBC, in fact. It is still not admissible in court. There's a couple of problems that I have with that, all right? One is we have different categories of votes, and we have different ways that they're reported and times that they are reported. There are ways that, and I'm not saying it doesn't have any value. I'm just saying it's one data set, and it's one data point in a slew of others that make up a data set to determine whether or not there are red flags with voting irregularities. And with this law, it doesn't take into consideration the unique ways that we count votes in this country by different methods at different times. So there can be things that account for rapid changes in reporting. The amount of votes people receive or a candidate receives in a certain amount of time. There are things that can account for that. Now, can it explain everything? I've seen the analysis in Pennsylvania using it. Can it explain everything? No. But there's at least enough in it. And that's why, in many instances, it is not admissible in a court of law. So, I mean, I guess, if you're Rudy, why not keep it as a tool? But it's really one data point in a larger data set. I mean, it's not just, like there's an election day in an emerging democracy. Everybody goes to the polls that is, throughout the day. And then the returns are reported, and you can see the variations in those returns over a certain period of time. It's different here. It's different. By the way, I oppose absentee ballot voting. I oppose early voting of almost every kind. It used to be for military personnel. It used to be in very extreme cases. Now it's just become a free-for-all. We're like a third world country. I mean, the founders wanted an election day for a reason. If you didn't really have skin in the game, if you didn't find it worthwhile your time to stand in line to vote, then really we don't want your vote. And that's the cold, hard truth. If you couldn't find an hour or an hour and a half in your day to go do something like participate in your civic duty, something so important as voting, then who the hell cares what you think anyway? And that's the way the founders thought. People just are too cushy to say it out loud. Not me. Moving on.
All I got to say about that is we became lazy.
Absolutely.
People as a whole.
Absolutely.
And
we expected laziness and tolerated it.
And we'd rather everybody else do it for us instead of doing it ourselves.
That's exactly right. I'm with her 100%. By the way, Biden +3, Texas. Moving on. A freaking joke, What's the next one, love?
Oh, sorry, love. Hold on. Gotta pull it up. All right, and the other one that you really liked was Where did Trump do worse geographically? That
Yes.
list can't. Just so you all know, Rich will be right back. He managed to disconnect himself. Gotta love the man.
I did that. That was totally me. All right, I'm back. Where did Trump do worse geographically in the state? And we can pull this up in the state of California. When all the ballots are said and done, we'll be looking at a 65-35. In the District of Columbia, he got about a point more than actually he got last time. Woo, 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 right? There aren't many places except for Minnesota. I guess our poll was right there. Biden leads in Minnesota by about 7 points. We overestimated Biden by a couple of points, but still, I think generally we were on target. He did worse in Colorado. I would point out for Brad Parscale that New Mexico, Joe Biden carried by about 10 points. All right. What a freaking catastrophe that guy was. And I'm sorry, I get all these messages, don't kick a guy when he's down. I've been kicking him for months, well before he was ever down. The president had a bunch of people around him that really did not deserve to be in those positions. All right. And I'm going to say it because I'm going to say whatever the hell I want because this is my show and I will say whatever the hell I want. Brad Parscale was not a political guy. He doesn't understand the political ancestry about electorates. He doesn't understand the voting behaviors and the ancestral connections of people, different groups of people, ethnicities to one party. By the way, that is something that we did during the public polling project of great value to the polling industry. Our findings on ethnicity, I will study and publish at some point because I think I want to write a book about the public polling project. All right. I think it's a big deal what we found, I think that it's a real big deal. People like Brad and others were way out of their depths. They were way out of their depth, in over their heads, whatever you want to call it. I'm sorry.
Kushner dropped the ball.
Kushner gave his father-in-law bad ideas, bad advice when he told him that you can replace white voters with minorities. That is not how this game is played. The name of the game is addition, not addition and subtraction. Yes, political coalitions do not shift in a vacuum, but you cannot afford to lose a big chunk of your coalition that makes up 40% of the vote or 35% of the vote at the expense of a few more points among a group that makes up 15% of the vote. The math doesn't add up. Mm-hmm. Especially not when you're a Midwest Republican. Especially not when you're a Republican who relies on the Midwest to give you an electoral college vote lead. New Mexico? Are you freaking kidding me? 5 electoral votes? Colorado, 9 electoral votes? Little bit of simple math for Brad. Both of those states are young and diverse. The amount of gains that you would have had to make with certain groups of people was frankly always completely unrealistic. Hat tip, Inside the Numbers, New Mexico voter analysis episode. Go look it up. That was an area where Gary Johnson took a significant amount of the vote. He was the former governor, Brad. Young voters liked him because of weed, Brad. It's just incredible. Incredible. The money. And now he's writing a book, Duke from Haven tells me in the chat I saw.
Yeah, Haven.
He's writing a book. So good for Brad. He'll get to go all over Fox News and everywhere else. Just unbelievable.
Speaking of Haven,
unreal. But
Duke,
not too many other places is the answer to that.
Duke wants to know if we can do a poll in the Rust Belt about people believing in the election. I said that, right, Duke?
That is a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
By the way,
So
Donald
you
Trump
guys-
romped it in Vigo County. His margin was plus 15. Vigo is a bellwether. When Vigo comes in, it will tell you whether or not there's slippage or not. It voted for Barack Obama twice. It voted for George W. Bush twice. It voted for Donald Trump twice. There are 10 counties in this country that have voted over more than 10 presidential elections for the winner, and 9 out of 10 of them voted for Donald Trump. And yes, maybe we should do, maybe tomorrow we'll put something up. Because right now, I don't know, I guess people started to fund the, look, guys, I just want to say this, and I always appreciate your support through Venmo and PayPal, and stickers, all of it. I just want to say this when it specifically comes to Venmo and PayPal. When we decided to pull these lists to look for these potentially fraudulent votes, I made that decision to do that on with People's Pundit dailies. I do very much appreciate that you guys started to. I don't know what but
You guys helped out.
you guys helped out. There's no doubt. I just don't want to get to the point where like you guys are giving me money to do things. Like I see all these other people. Somebody had to go fund me. It was like $100 and something thousand.
Be careful.
Be careful who you give your money to. I don't know how many people have access to these voter files. I know a lot of people in this game. We all know each other. I don't know some of these people on Twitter that are asking for money for GoFundMe so they could research it. They're going to wind up buying a stale old list or something if lucky. I mean, really, these voter files change bi-weekly to monthly. And I don't know any of these people. I don't know. Maybe they contacted Aristotle or L2. I don't think so. I mean, just be very careful with, what you're doing with your money. Okay. And then, yeah, I think that we should continue with the public polling project. That is something worthy of continuing to fund. Maybe a monthly approval poll or a poll about whether or not people think Joe Biden is legitimate. Because I mark my words, hear this. If you hear nothing else this episode, soon we will get the fakesters like Nate and the rest of them to start releasing polls that 60+% of Americans believe Joe Biden is legitimate and Donald Trump should concede the election. That is a lot of horse crap. I can't go anywhere, and people know what I do. I can't go anywhere without people asking me questions. And how could Joe Biden get away with stealing the election? I have news for Joe Biden and the media. Fake poll all you want. Americans of all stripes, including, by the way, African Americans we spoke to the other day, who told us point blank, they do not believe that their community in Atlanta voted for Joe Biden at these numbers, correct?
True story.
They do not believe that their community in Philly voted for Joe Biden in these numbers. And that will be some of those comments on the record comments will be published with our findings when we are done with the other states. So fake poll all you want, but it's a load of crap and nobody believes you, is my point. Nobody believes you. So the public polling project, I do view to be a worthy thing to keep going. Somebody needs a legitimate approval poll. Somebody needs a legit, because here's something I spoke about the other day with a reporter who called. We haven't even gotten into this other side of this, what the implications are for these fake polls. We haven't got suppression, right? Fundraising, the idea that one candidate is has an insurmountable lead. What about when it comes time to lawmaking, folks? What about when it comes time to gun control? What about when it comes time to packing the Supreme Court? What about when it comes time to adding 2 U.S. Senate seats for the District of Columbia? What about when it comes time to Puerto Rico statehood and then adding 2 U.S. Senate seats to them? What about when it comes time for radical elements of the Green New Deal? What about issues in legislation? This is why I say they did the country a disservice, because lawmakers rely on us to make decisions. Maybe they shouldn't. Maybe they should just be brave enough to have the courage of their own convictions and write legislation based on what's good for the country and what's not. Support legislation on what they believe is right and what they believe is not. But they don't. Instead, they call guys like me and they say, do me a favor, Rich. I'll give you 5 to 10 grand. Lick your finger and tell me which way the wind is blowing. If they can't get a horse race right, they can't get that right either. If we can't trust them to tell us how an election is going, how could we trust them to tell us what public opinion is about, is like on issues? We can't. Major problem. Major problem. And we haven't even gotten into that level of it yet because everyone is still reeling about the election. That is a major problem. What about when we see the polls? Poll. 6 in 10 support 2 new Supreme Court justices. Poll. 75% say they support another shutdown.
Yeah. All right.
What about those polls? By the way, did you see the tweet from this idiot? Proof positive, Naomi Wolf. Thank you for proving conclusively that higher education does not mean you're intelligent.
Amen.
If I'd known Biden was going to be open to lockdowns, as he now states, which is something historically unprecedented in any pandemic and a terrifying practice, one that would ever end because elites love it, I would never have voted for him. Were they watching the same election that the rest of us were watching? Donald Trump turned to him in the third debate and said, are you going to lock us down or not, Joe? He said, well, I wouldn't take it off the table. It's whatever the experts tell me.
What about the mandatory now?
What the hell are you talking about if you'd have known? Fake news is dangerous. Fake news is dangerous. And right, the mandatory mask mandate when if and when Joe Biden is seated by the Electoral College. Because I will tell you this, guys, the media doesn't seat the Electoral College. The media doesn't declare presidencies. The media doesn't declare winners or losers. The states will declare their winners. The Electoral College will declare the winner. And there have been, by the way, instances in the past where an election has proven to be just completely tainted. And states have sent delegates, and there have been reruns. That absolutely has happened. They're trying to race through this because they don't want the country to see the proof of the irregularities.
Mm-hmm.
They know guys like me can only work as fast as we can work.
And they're trying to outrun.
And they're trying to outrun us. That's it. It's a race. They're trying to outrun us. They gave, and I know this to be true, they gave Fox News till basically Saturday to call the state of Pennsylvania for Joe Biden. Fox News did not do it because they would have, but they had so much heat on them with Arizona, and they didn't want to make that other call, so they basically abdicated that role. Okay, that's what happens. In Arizona, I just want to give people an update in Arizona. Biden won the dump from Maricopa yesterday, which was a change in, he won it about 54.7 to 43.7, all right, which was 9 points. That was a dump that was less than 7,000 votes. What I understand is that if it would have been dumped in totality, which everyone expected it to be, that it would have been the normal mark. Because I said, why the difference in the margins? Where is what precinct did it come from? And this is the problem with not having precinct level data, right? So that was a big issue. So in the end, what I am told is they dumped precincts that were more favorable to Biden, right? And that's why. And if they were dumped in their totality, then we would have saw margins like we have been seeing at Maricopa. That makes more sense because we've been seeing bigger chunks at Maricopa. That was a small chunk. Like, why on earth did they just do that? Didn't make, why didn't they just dump it all? But on Saturday and over the weekend, Trump actually overperformed in these other votes. So Pinal County, however you say it, Larry, try telling me.
Whatever.
He took 64.4. That was above our estimates. In Maricopa, with the dump that was almost 50,000 votes, Trump won at 56.4 to 40.8. Okay. And that's what they're telling me, that if it was the chunk that they would have, in totality, if they would have dumped it together, then it would have been more like a 56-40 kind of split. Trump actually took one of the chunks in Phoenix, out in the Phoenix area, which was crazy. But then Biden came back to win 62.4 to 36.2 in Apache, which is what we were talking about when we said there was really is one dump in doubt. That was Pima County. Trump won that. And then the other one was expected to be a Biden dump. And now here we wait. There is, best guess, guys, there is around over 80,000 ballots left. And they're expected to break pretty around 80,000. And there's a bunch of provisionals in there. And those are people that say they showed up to vote for Trump that day. Most of them, it's very Trump area. And they were late, so they had to fill out provisional ballots. Okay. Yeah, that's really it. Navajo Nation went pretty big for Trump, so that helped him close that. In the end, we'll just have to see. I don't want to tell people what I'll tell you what I'm being told. I'm just telling you with a caveat, because the truth is, just like I always tell people, don't read the early vote tea leaves. We don't know how people voted. You just have to wait. If I had precinct level data, then I'd know what they're most likely to be, but I don't. All right. So the bottom line is we'll just have to wait and see. But I suspect that these will be more favorable to Trump. And they're telling me that we could see a pretty big net gain today for the president, which would be, the number they're giving me would be enough to put him over. I just caution all of you that there are disputes about that decision desk from this morning. They're skeptical of it. And I got to be honest with you, I'm even skeptical. You don't know how people voted. But the bottom line is, either way, it will continue to tighten. So whether or not it's a few thousand votes here and there, we're going to find out. And also,
blue counties.
he did do very well in blue counties. I was actually really shocked at that Pima vote that came in. I was like, when I had to double and triple check, I'm like, wait, what? He won the vote in Pima? He did. And then because, you know what, though? We shouldn't be surprised, because that is the one state where we may have overestimated Trump a little bit. Till my dying day, I believe I polled Pennsylvania totally right on key. I think I may have actually underestimated Donald Trump in Pennsylvania a little bit. I think he probably, I don't believe that. And I'm allowed, again, to have my own opinion. That because I'm also looking at absentee ballots. Who voted by absentee ballots? Is it enough to get them into a Trump +1? There are 100,000 provisional ballots left in the state of Pennsylvania, and they're supposed to skew heavily Donald Trump. So they didn't need that many absentee ballot votes, like we saw in Michigan, to change that result, to put our polling right on the money. Mm-hmm. Now, Arizona appears to be where I got it right that Maricopa closed. It did. What happened to Biden +8 in Maricopa? They're about tied right now. What happened to that? The difference is that vote shares were a little bit off. Trump really cranked out some vote in red Arizona. There's just no doubt. La Paz still has some votes out too, but small. All right. The bottom line is, whether or not our polling is like close, really close, will be Maricopa will decide that. So he's about 2 points separated with Biden and Maricopa right now. We had it dead even in Maricopa. So if that tightens to that much, then that would give Trump the edge. And that would put our poll right in the realm. I mean, 2.5 points. We had Trump up in Arizona. All right. So we're just going to have to, again, we'll have to wait. I want to tell you when it's coming, but the problem is they told me basically everything was coming yesterday, and that didn't happen. So I don't want to keep telling people this. Like I said on War Room the other day. I mean, I tell you what officials tell me. and they change it. This has been very crazy election. Really has been. All right. So there we have it. Okay.
I want to ask you about the glitches, like scorecard and hammer and
Can you read one specifically?
yeah. Jack, can you re-ask your question for me? So I don't have to look through the huge feed.
Well, Dominion is a problem. There's no
Yeah.
doubt. Dominion is a problem, and Dominion was used in Georgia as well. All right. So the bottom line is, and just so people don't know, I'm losing my voice here. Dominion was used in Michigan. The state legislature has launched an investigation. Basically, I do think that may be headed for an audit. We had said that on election night. I was like, what the hell is this? Antrim County is a Trump county. There's no chance Joe Biden won plus 60 in Antrim County. There's a problem there. When they fixed that, it netted Trump 6,000 more votes. From what we understand, there are 47 other counties in Michigan that use that, and Georgia used it. So again, when you have a discrepancy that bad, when you have a software program that, I don't know enough about it to say whether something like that is one way or another. But hammer, scorecard, these are, highly suspicious, guys. Very highly suspicious stuff. And it has to be investigated. I don't know how you call an election. Can we ever have faith in an election again? Sonic Boomer asked. That is the problem here. And thank you for your super chat. That is a major problem. You can't have questions about regime credibility in a self-governing society. You can't. And this stuff, I really give credit to the Michigan legislature for doing what it appears they're doing. I don't know how anybody else isn't at this point. I really don't. You can't have a 6,000 vote discrepancy in one little county. Antrim is not a big county. And it swung the vote 6,000 votes. That's a major problem, guys. That is a major problem. And Dave, thanks for the, again, super chat. And just Arizona, what I said about Arizona was, really, we don't know how these people voted. The dump in Maricopa that Biden won last night, as it was explained to me, was a favorable area for Maricopa. And had all of those votes been dumped, like we've seen the other dumps in Maricopa, 50,000 at a time, not 6,000 votes, then we would have seen a similar margin for Trump that we have seen before in the last couple of days. And I'm willing to at least give them the benefit of the doubt on that. I am. Because when you report small little votes like that, you tend to be reporting certain specific areas. And it can be lopsided to one candidate or the other pretty heavily. All right. So we'll just have to see. I do think, though, there absolutely still is a chance for Arizona for Trump to eke out Arizona. Either way, no matter what happens, Fox News's call was extremely irresponsible. And I will also say, I believe it to be intentional.
It wasn't.
I believe Fox News knew exactly what they were doing. I believe Fox News called the state of Arizona to give the impression that Trump lost a must-win state, so that when everybody woke up the next day in the morning, they wouldn't have been so outraged to see the Midwest was red when they went to bed and blue when they woke up. It was a predicate to stop the counting, and it was a predicate to do what they did. And that's it. I mean, Fox had the data they had. Their voter analysis was clearly wrong. It was wrong from Florida to North Carolina. It was wrong. So to rely and say that you're relying on your voter analysis, that you've already gotten plenty of information that it was incorrect, to rely on that is more than irresponsible. You have to make a conscious decision to do something that irresponsible. These are not stupid people. These are not dumb people. They did it on purpose.
You want to know who I really feel bad for? All the Venezuelans, all the Brazilians.
Oh, the messages that we are getting.
That ran away from this kind of life.
Yep.
To come here and live free are now
The messages we're getting are really kind of crazy, you know?
Man. My heart goes out to you all.
And that's a good question, Bo. Thanks for the super chat. He said, would it help to get the voter records for the super high turnout areas and poll those people to ask them if they actually voted? We did poll those super high areas. And in truth, we polled them and they looked like the margins they were before, because they did dump some of the early vote. That early vote, lots of it was dumped first. And then what we did was get another wave of dumps because we took away the moratoriums on election integrity that says by this time you must report this amount. And it just leaves it open for it to be a never-ending flood of ballots. We did poll those people, but like I told Nate at the New York Times and others who asked the question, who did you vote for in 2016? People lie. It's not an accurate. It is just not an accurate question. We stopped asking that question a long time ago because there's so much evidence, not just from us, but from a lot of people, that question is not reliable. People always want to be on the winning team and they lie about who they vote for. All right. So we don't ask that question. And what would really just help is, would be an audit. But again, going back to the Fox thing, I fully do believe that Fox did that on purpose. This is not something that is an easy mistake to make. It has to be an intentional mistake. By that time on election night, it was already very clear that the exits and the voter analysis were wrong. It was already very clear that Trump's election day vote was much stronger than they suggested it was. And it was very clear that in every state where the early vote was dumped and had a deadline, that Trump's election day margin overtook him. That's what happened in Texas. That's what happened in Kentucky. That's what happened all over the country. That's what happened in North Carolina. It's what happened all over the country. And only in these areas where it was allowed this constant trickle did we see these issues. There's nothing they can do to get away from that. And by the time they made that call, that was already abundantly clear. Abundantly clear. So it had to be intentional. Had to be. Had to be. I'm sorry, but it's true. There's just no way you could do that. That's it. I don't know, Matt. That's a great question, Denny. I don't know, Matt. I don't want to say either way, whether or not somebody's legitimate or not. I would just say, like we do here with polling, like when I had the public polling project, I said, listen, if we use voter files, poll voter files, we'll use Aristotle data solutions. If we are going to use an online panel, we're going to use Dynata or Cint Insights. Like, you should demand this information from people that you give your money to. Always ask them where their data sources are. And that's, maybe he did. So I don't want to just say somebody's not doing something legitimate, but I'm just saying you should demand that information before you give to people, because I have relationships with these vendors, and I'm just saying that's what it takes to do that. And it takes money. To pull what we pulled in Michigan was several $1,000s. Mm-hmm. It takes money. All right. That's why polling costs so much money, Ryan. Tell you what, Ryan, that's a good question. How does Arizona add? Arizona, the Phoenix area is a very fast-growing population center. It is. And then Florida as well did add a lot. But again, I will say this. Look at how Florida voted. It was a well-oiled machine. Anywhere that there were these standards, there were no problems. Only when these places where there was a moratorium on these standards were there a problem. Arizona, when we polled Arizona, we actually found that first generation people, the top 5 states to move to Arizona were California, Illinois, what else, Laura? California, Illinois, Ohio, California, New York, Illinois, Ohio, and forgot what the 5th was. It may have been Florida. There was some stuff back and forth. There was that final tier was trading out the lead a couple of times. But what we found was that first gen mover was actually the best group for Donald Trump. And the third gen was also a majority group for him, but it wasn't his best group. And the second gen is where he got killed. So people who moved there had parents or whatever that were born in Arizona. Maybe their grandparents took them there, and their parents were born, and then they grew up there, went to school in like Phoenix or something, and they were very liberal group. That was how it would, how it would be. And as far as whether I think Trump should give up or not, I will just say this. Hillary Clinton still hasn't conceded.
I know.
I don't know how they expect the right to just go away right now. Why? Because Mitt Willard Romney came out and said it's over? Because Poppy Bush said it's over? They still haven't conceded the 2016 election. They denied the man and his supporters their duly elected right to govern, their legitimately elected right to govern. And now they just expect them to walk away? Screw the Bush family, dude.
Yeah.
Screw George W. Bush. Who gives a damn what he and his brother think? It's okay for the Bushes, by the way. It's okay for the Bushes to contest votes that were illegally cast. They were breaking the door down in Miami-Dade, trying to physically break the door down because officials in Miami-Dade did to them what officials did to Trump supporters in Philadelphia, in Milwaukee, in Detroit.
Amen.
The difference was the Trump supporters conducted themselves better.
Mm-hmm.
That's the truth. The people who were supposed to be watching the polls for Donald Trump conducted themselves better. I see my buddy Howard in here. He's from Florida. He'll tell you. George W. Bush's people tried breaking the door down physically, running over people to get into those offices in Miami-Dade to watch the counting. In the damn brief from Bush, they cite how inherent fraud must be assumed when you have election officials keep you from being able to audit and monitor the vote. When election officials refuse to allow the other side to watch vote counting, you must assume fraud and therefore not count the ballots. Right, Georgie? Right, Henry? Henry Olsen? That is what they argued. I mean, it's incredible. Good for Bush, but not anybody else. Only the Bush family and political dynasties are allowed to contest elections. Anybody else not named Bush or Clinton or Obama,
Which is funny because the Bushes are grouped in.
they're all friends. I got news for everybody. They're all friends. They all meet before Poppy died. They all met out at his main estate and all talked about how stupid the rest of us are. They're all corrupt.
And
All
Mitt
of them.
Romney, put
All
a
of
D
them.
next to your name.
Mitt Romney is going to work for the Biden administration in Health and Human Services. I
Shocker.
kid you not. I kid you not. Mitt Romney is just not a man of character. He's just
No,
not a man of
exactly.
character. He never was. I mean, he never
And He
was.
tried to play that ticket when he was running.
Of course he did. But America didn't buy it. America didn't buy it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he lost Wisconsin by 6 points. That's why he lost,
Yeah.
Pennsylvania by 4.5 points with less votes. By the way, this is another thing. They're expecting you to believe that Black Americans in Philadelphia voted for Joseph R. Biden more than they voted for Barack Obama when he defeated Mitt Romney in the state of Pennsylvania by 4.5 points.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a joke. Little bit of a joke, and I'm sorry, I can't. Maybe he did steal the election, Abdu, or maybe he did. That's my point, though. Like, it's like good for thee and not for thee. Good for me, but good for thee, but not for me. Like, they're not consistent. I will say this: the Washington Post guy, though, who used to, at the time of that election, the Washington Post head, he was fired for this. He spent millions of dollars doing a recount to try to prove that George W. Bush did, in fact, steal the election. And by Gore's counting standards, George W. Bush actually earned more votes than the official vote tally, not less. So, it is what it is. But I'm simply saying that, I don't know what the thing is with Lynn Wood. I'm not going to say, look, I don't want to get into that. When it comes to lawyers, I would hire Robert. I would not hire Lynn. I have had stuff leaked to me. That's,
that you should not have.
look, I would hire Robert. I would not hire Lynn. I mean, some of this stuff is, look, we can all look pretty bad in court documents because like somebody who's trying to sue you or trying to they can make you look bad. All of those court records always make you, that's their intended purpose, to make you look look bad, guys. But some of this stuff that is ex co-workers, right, have accused him of is just nuts. I mean, and I was given something that I can't share, but some of the behavior is not behavior of a healthy man. All right. Yeah, so that's it. I mean, I'm just saying, really. So this idea that George W. Bush can contest votes, the counting of votes, their argument was the same. Only the difference was that we were talking about a few precincts in one county, in one state. What we see here and what we have found so far is that this was like an effort on steroids. It was an effort on steroids. John, thanks for the super chat. Thoughts on the national popular vote? I don't think Republicans would be able to win the popular vote moving forward for a while. I just believe that. I think it's going to be very difficult for a Republican at all to win the popular vote. I will say this, though, that without the nonsense and what I believe to be shenanigans, Trump would have been much closer. And in the end, I think that the rule about the Electoral College was pretty much dead on, which is that a Republican may be able to lose the popular vote by a much bigger margin than even I thought and still win the Electoral College, because California will keep counting and that margin will keep going because of California. Look, if you look at California alone, all right, let me get Los Angeles County. There's 2 million votes in Los Angeles County alone. So Joe Biden's almost entire popular vote margin is in Los Angeles, and let's just see, the District of Columbia. That's almost his entire popular vote margin. The city of Los Angeles alone, Laura, and the District of Columbia. In 2016, Hillary Clinton also was able to add New York to that list, but I'm sure New York will start handing in ballots soon because they don't want it. They already started. They don't want to look like they're the only ones who didn't make it look like a metro area went bigger for Biden, like Kings, by the way, right? Stuff like that. Because if you look at New York, Democrats did very badly in the rest of New York. And I told you guys, New York, there's just tons and tons of votes in New York City. So, but Biden's lead in New York is nowhere near what it was for Hillary Clinton. There's less than 1 million votes that separate them in the entire state of New York. That really shows you how well Donald Trump did in Suffolk County, for instance, and how well he did in Nassau. He's leading in Nassau right now. There's a couple contested elections out there, and people are saying that the same thing that happened in these Midwestern states is eventually going to happen in a lot of these other areas. So, that's really what it comes down to. All right, but it is 12:05, and I don't know if we're going to be doing a what are the odds. Barnes I will answer Jose's real quick because but I don't know what we're going to be doing with what are the odds, because Barnes may be on a plane, traveling, lending his assistance somewhere, but I'm not at liberty to say. So basically, I'm not sure if he'll be traveling or not doing what he's doing, but him and I were kind of like working on something.
Together.
Maybe I can snag him. We'll see what his schedule is like, but we do intend to continue. What are the odds? It's just that he, he's got a practice, he's got a law practice. So sometimes that's the way it is. Jose asked, and I want to say this, what is the future of the Hispanic vote? And has the Trump team contacted you? I've sent 2 super chats earlier and they were ignored. Okay, well, I probably missed it, and I apologize for that.
And the feed is going very fast.
It's going very quickly, guys. So it's hard to keep up. But Jose, the future of the Hispanic vote at this point is regional, and I would say absolutely is up for grabs. Why? Because let's say Joe Biden is seated by the Electoral College and inaugurated. This will continue. What this class divide will continue. And eventually, there will be candidates the media cannot paint as racist, right? They're just not going to be able to do it as easy as they're doing for Donald Trump. In Nevada, he won 41% of the Hispanic vote. In Florida, he damn near won it. He won huge margins with Cubans, huge margins with Colombians, huge margins with Venezuelans. About 70% went to Trump in Venezuelans, which, by the way, we told you was going to happen. I think the Hispanic vote is, and for that matter, they lost a big chunk of the black vote, contrary to what they're doing post-election day. They did lose a big chunk of the black vote. I think the future of the Hispanic vote will depend whether or not the regular establishment Republican Party is able to seize control back of the Republican Party, which I do not believe they can do. All right. Donald Trump has transformed the Republican Party into a much more diverse, color-wise, everything, and a much more American-friendly party. So it has always been a fallacy that Hispanics come here and don't love America. There are more liberal Hispanic groups than others. There's no doubt. But some of the most pro-American, diehard, anybody who lives in Florida will tell you, some of the most pro-American, diehard Hispanic working class people are love America. I mean, really. And I think that trend will continue. I really do. Especially because a Joe Biden administration will further scare the living shit out of them. All right. They came here for a reason, like Laura said before. You got to see the messages we're getting from people. I left Mexico. I left Puerto Rico. I left Venezuela. I left Colombia. I left, right, less so Puerto Rico, but right. I left Cuba, and I left it to get away from this. I mean, there's a real trepidation out there that there's almost like no last safe place to go. You know, there really is. And I think that will continue to further it because the policies that they're trying to implement will hurt these people. They will hurt these people, and they will further alienate them. The gap between the rich and poor will grow again, even though it was shrinking under Trump. It will get worse. And that's what benefited Donald Trump to begin with. That's how he won the presidency in the first place. All right. I hope that answers the question. What's up?
Do you know the person's name that said I missed their super chat?
That was Jose. I just answered him.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And on others, just so I can go again with what I said about in Georgia on Twitter. I really wish people would call me to clarify what I'm saying. I do think that the remaining votes in Arizona will tighten the race, and they think they're still going to edge it out. In truth, none of us really know until they just get counted. But I do think it's possible. It is still very possible. He ekes that out by like 2,000 votes. They think more. I don't. I think it'll be very close if it is. And then in what was I saying before, though, before I got to, Georgia. I really wish people would, before I sign off here, I really wish people would call me before they take something, what I say, because they don't understand it. And then blow it out of proportion. What I meant in Fulton County, those are the batches of people that we start with when we try to identify fraud. It did not mean that necessarily those were all cast, like all of those votes were cast. It's just that these are the pools that they do run to. And in fact, in other states that we've been through already, we are seeing what we suspected. I am not saying 130,000 ballots in Fulton were written up fraudulently. We don't know yet. I'll get you the number when I'm done. I'm sure that there are some that we're going to find. But what I am saying is, alone in Fulton County, that number is big. The number of people who have change of address flags, that doesn't even count the dead. It was much bigger than I expected. And if you look at the ratio so far with what we found, that is disproportionately high for a county that is smaller than some of these other areas. So what I am saying is that is the group that I will look at first and go down the line. That is where we've been identifying these ballots. What are you huffing and puffing about? What's up?
It's just people are like my fourth time asking. Well, I'm going.
We're going as fast as we can here, guys.
What you guys don't know is I'm in 3 different
chats.
rooms
Yeah,
trying to cipher all the.
That's why I said you should get over here.
So I can.
It still rolls super fast, Laura. It's still.
Time donating. Please give me more details
on what
COA may imply.
I just did. That's what I just did. A COA is a change of address flag. And then we will pull those change of address, not just them, but other known deceased. The problem is the state is always slow to the rolls. Like I read in the first segment, I spent the entire first segment on this. If you didn't see it, go back and watch it. The state never catches up as quickly as we'd like them to. That's just the truth. And change of address flags mean the person is not at that address. They have a forwarding address somewhere else that's not on the voter record. In most cases, it's out of the damn state. I mean, sometimes it's within the state, but then they'll have a duplicate record in that county, somewhere else, maybe in a different county. It happens a lot. And so that is where we start, because we're trying to identify the easiest possible pool of votes. And that's what I meant when I was going through this difference between a solicited ballot and an unsolicited ballot. 2 months we went over this. I had bullet points up on the screen. Remember? Everybody gets a ballot. In prior years, ballots must be requested. There's a reason for that law, because an inactive voter is no longer living in the state, is not going to request that ballot. They're gone. But if you mail them out unsolicited, or even the requests, then somebody could get those requests, get those ballots, and return them. Change of address flags and other inactive voters will receive ballots and/or requests, even the dead. In prior elections, inactive voters must update their info. They did not just get them automatically. Then, so what the point of this was to increase the pool of potential fraud. How do we get access to a potential large pool of votes and records for ballots to do it? And then second, you need to remove the verification procedures. They didn't want signature match. They didn't want anybody looking to see if those verification procedures were met. They kept people out the doors. They even removed signature match as a qualification. In North Carolina, anybody could have voted on my behalf, right? Let's be real. What's your address? That's it. Didn't even ask for my ID. And then third, you need somebody to bring all these ballots back. Biden campaign raised a lot of money, so it was pretty easy to get people on the ground and do it. I got censored by Twitter pointing out a former Obama speechwriter who was leading such an effort in Georgia. What we are finding now is the U.S. Postal Service acted as their personal ballot harvesters in a lot of these instances. Democrats even wanted to use taxpayer funds to pay for ballot harvesters. And in fact, in Clark County, Nevada, they got it. $300,000 over. So the taxpayers of Nevada got paid to break the law in a state where the taxpayers in North Nevada paid for the law to be broken. Ballot harvesting is in fact illegal in the state of Nevada. But who cares? Put a moratorium on it. COVID.
I'm telling you.
None of this ever made sense, Laura, because if you did care about COVID and interaction, right? That's why they weren't knocking on doors, supposedly. Then why on earth would you justify ballot harvesting? That's a physical thing. It's a super spreader, man. Come on, man. Come on, man. Ballot harvesting is a super spreader. All right, so I'm going to cut rocks.
Cut rocks?
I'm going to kick rocks. I'm sorry. I'm so damn tired. I mean, if you want to support what we do, Denny, you could subscribe to the channel. You could go to the PayPal thing, the Venmo thing. But really, we like people to get data for their dollars. So, really, if you want to support the work, subscriptions are always welcome. All right. And how do you think the ground game is for Senator Loeffler versus Reverend? Those are going to be tough races. Why? Because, this is going to be a tough race for them. Even though it looks like clearly Republicans have the vote power, they're going to let them get away with this. Now, this is what the National Republican Senatorial Committee better take their heads out of their asses and understand right now. You let them get away with this. It will never end. There is no reason for them to not do this to all of you too.
Look how brazen they are
right
now.
Look at, they just dumped another Philadelphia, Laura. It was less than 5% for Donald Trump. They just don't give a damn. Why? Because Lindsey Graham is running all over the country telling big donors that we all know that there's mass fraud, but we can't do anything about it. Or there's not a whole lot we should do. I know. Cut rocks. Slimer. We're going to work on merch, and we're going to have some
Yes.
maybe Nate with the exclamation mark, the Slimer with like that fat thing from Ghostbusters, right? Maybe I'll put maybe 4 hairs on his head like he has. And
Real quick, Alaska. Somebody keeps asking.
yes,
Alaska.
Alaska. Let me read you what generally came down the pike from Alaska, because I asked, right? They're going to be dropping votes throughout the week. And we do think Sullivan and Young are going to hold on. All right. The presidential race, it's just that there's just votes that just keep coming in and coming in and coming in. But it is obviously more likely than not that they'll hang on in Alaska. Okay. And by they, I mean both the presidency and the 2 races between with Sullivan and what's his name. All right. And then, by the way, any other year, Alaska would have been called.
A while ago.
Yeah. That's really it. All right. What else? Did I give everybody the update on everything? Yeah. And in case you missed it, North Carolina, look for those race calls later today. We're just waiting for the word from the North Carolina state board of elections. Okay. But we believe Tillis's lead is more than the outstanding ballots. That's not the case with the presidential race, but they would have to break ridiculously for Joe Biden. So we think North Carolina will be both solid red on both maps by the time the day is over. By the time the day is over, it's very likely anyway. All right, and that's where we're at. So Biden's lead, I see, drop down again below 10,000 in Georgia. Some of those will be ejected. Some of those votes will be ejected. There are too many absentee ballots, military ballots, to call Georgia right now. And frankly, the state of Nevada should never have been called. That's another one. I even though I believe Joe Biden will carry it, and always did. I just believe that they had to defy a federal judge to do it, and it was too close, just like in Pennsylvania. And people haven't had a chance to look at those votes, Laura. Haven't had a chance to look at those votes. Biden +6, Nevada, another one. Nate, great job, Nate. Fantastic. Freaking fraud. Yeah, we can do it too.
Trump +50.
Yeah, who knows? Ron DeSantis +22 Illinois. You like that? No problem. We can do it too. I mean, really, what a freaking joke. They lied to you guys. They lied to you. All right?
Oh, real quick,
all right,
guys. Rich Barris will be on One American News at 1 p.m.
Is that a live interview? Then I got to get going.
Yes, you got to get handsome.
I don't know, Billy. We're in a whole new territory. I really don't know. I think I think that it would be something, it would be tough, Billy. I mean, really, it would be tough. If you are a Trump supporter, I wouldn't tell you to give up. I mean, they still haven't given up, Billy. Hillary Clinton still thinks she won. I mean, really. But I think there is evidence of irregularities in this election that I've never seen before. The level. I've never seen it before. So we'll just have to see what the legislatures are willing to do with that. Okay. All right. So we're off. We're off. Yeah. One American News. And then I'm sure there's some other stuff going on too. Watch my Twitter feed. I'll blast it out. Okay. I didn't know that was live. I thought I had some time to prep for that puppy, but I got to go get something to eat if it's a live interview. All right. All right. We love you guys. And we'll be back tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time with, of course, all the new updates. All right. Don't forget to subscribe to YouTube before you go. Sign up for the newsletter. It's in the YouTube description. Hit the notification bell. That'll let you know when we go live. But I really do need to urge everybody, because you see my follower count rising. They could zap me at any moment. All right. So I'm not because I'm doing anything wrong. I'm just saying this is the environment we live in. And my following is now getting to the point where I'm on their radar. So sign up to that newsletter, because we're going to be streaming these videos to PPD again. We're looking at, as quick as we can, for a community kind of system, not just some video is up where you guys can all sign in and chat and talk. All right.
We're friends in this.
Yeah, man. We're going to make a community, a real community. Not just like an alternative to watch the video, a community. All right. We'll be back tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. All the best, folks. See you in the AM.
that you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends, and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride. Steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me